Welcome to Leadership from the Trenches with Mike Berry and Nicole Swan.
I'm one of your co-hosts, Mike Berry. I'm here with Nikki Swan, and we'll let her introduce herself in just a sec. And we're pleased to have with us today Kent Miles, who is an IT entrepreneur. Nikki, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and Kent?
Yes, absolutely. I'm Nikki Swan. I'm a senior consultant with Peridot Leadership Consulting, and I am pleased to introduce to everybody Kent Miles. Kent is a technology specialist and owner of SolidBase IT. He provides IT consulting and technology services for small to medium-sized businesses, helping them to build strong IT foundations. Kent has 16 years of experience in technology and has been steeped in tech since birth, learning from his dad, who is a SQL engineer and a director. See, Kent has been consulting for 8 years, helping small and medium-sized businesses. Through this, he has helped build businesses that have the same passion as him for technology, taking care of people, and serving their customers. Kent enjoys spending time with his wife, exploring, hiking, and traveling. He also loves playing and teaching board games. Welcome, Kent.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
All right, Kent. Well, it's a pleasure to have you and on our podcast today. And this is, of course, a leadership podcast. So naturally, we would like to know kind of some of your early influences with leadership. Anything, I don't know, Boy Scouts, anything like that you want to talk about?
As far as early experiences with leadership, yeah, I was in Boy Scouts. I went in and I got that Eagle Scout back in the day. And then afterwards, I went right into working in construction. I did a lot of very physical labor things for a bit. And then I discovered I loved technology. I had grown up around it and my dad was in it. And so I just ended up jumping in and trying it, And I would say that like overall, my experience with leadership has been generally working and leading in small teams. And then after about 8 years ago, I started interacting with business owners, and I really enjoyed working with small business owners. And so about 3.5 years ago, I took the plunge and decided to become a business owner myself.
Okay, very good. And is this the first business you've owned, or have you had a company before this?
I ran small companies and I would go in and do like just little side jobs in order to, like little side hustles, like mowing lawns and selling different things to like neighborhoods. I like back in the day, I ran a paper route, and you kind of ran your own business with the paper route you sold to all the people on your route and tried to get them to sell papers. You had to collect all the checks and pay it to the newspaper. So I've been doing it since I was around 12 years old, at least, like all these little small side hustles. But I didn't take the jump until 3.5 years ago and started a legit LLC business that's recognized by the government. And
So how
So
does
Ken,
go ahead,
okay.
Nikki. Go ahead.
Well, that's a big jump to make, Ken. So can you talk about what needed to come into play for you to be confident to do that? And the question I'm really interested in is, how have you dealt with imposter syndrome? Have you grappled with that, or was that not a problem for you? How's that
oh,
going for you?
that is a really good question. So while I was consulting for another company, I sat there and I was like, I think this is fun and all, but I was trying to figure out my next step. And I saw like leadership, and like I had some people talk to me about like, do you want to become a manager or team lead for this company? And I sat there and I thought, and I had been writing these papers because they at that company, they're asking us to read books and write book reports. And one of the books that we read was Start With Why. And they asked about like your why, like what is your why for doing technology? What is your purpose? And I sat there and I was like, my why is I really like serving people. I like interacting with businesses. I like going in and adding value to people. And after I read that, I wrote a report, and then I sat there and it's like, how could I add value to this business? And my vision then was to go in and like I saw it as a very successful business. I wanted to go in and open it up in other states, in other areas, and in like new territories. And then that kind of made me realize I was like, I just need to go in and learn how to do that. So I mean, and so then that took me down a whole different journey.
So,
But yeah, that. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
can you talk a little bit about gaining that knowledge that you didn't have? Maybe kind of walk through the process of realizing there's something you need to learn about, and then what you do next to get that information.
Well, the funny thing about that is it feels like I'm still learning how to do all that. But the like getting there was I decided I wanted to go and understand how to run a business. So what I did first of all was I started reading a whole bunch of business books. I love reading, so you can see all the books behind me. I inhale those sort of things just because I want to understand how you do it. But I decided the best course of action would be going to school. So I decided actually at the age of about 34 or 35, around there, I decided I wanted to go and get a bachelor's degree in business. And so that's what I went and did was I got a bachelor's degree in business and I've got a certificate in entrepreneurship. And so like while I was working for this company, after I wrote that paper, after reading Start With Why, it just is like I put myself on this path. And then and so like over time I would do some school and then I was like working and then but yeah, it's just after a while I got to the point where I started the business, and that's a different story, but yeah.
Well,
Would you say it takes courage?
Yeah, it does. It's one of those things is like during that time I was going to school, I was like, I know I'm going to do this. I talked to everybody about it. It was like, I think you've heard of like going around and telling everybody your goals so that they actually happen, because it keeps all these people asking you all the time, like, hey, how's that going for you? And so I went in and I just started telling everybody, I'm going to start this business soon. And they're like, well, what's holding you back? And I was like, well, I've got a non-compete with my old company, so I can't start it yet. And then like while I was working for that company, I couldn't start a business while working for them doing what I love doing, which is strategic technology and implementation and projects and like just management of all that. But what happened was I left that job, went to another job, and 2 years went by, and then we had this little thing called COVID hit. You guys might have heard that before. So March 5th, I got married. I have a beautiful, wonderful wife. Her name's Emily. And then COVID actually shut everything down in the nation around March 12th. So I still had my job. And then around April 1st, I got laid off. About 15% of the entire employment for the company I was working for, they all got laid off. And my boss called me and he's like, I feel horrible about this. And he was just like, what can I do to help you? And it was funny because the date that they let me go was like 3 days past my non-compete ending. And so it was almost like fortuitous than anything. I was like, I just told him, I was like, don't worry about it. I'm good. I have things taken care of, because in the next few weeks, I actually went in and I started a internship. I had to do 2 internships for my degree. And the second internship was an entrepreneurial internship. And I opened my business. And that's kind of my story. Is it's like it fell in my lap, but at the same time, all the timing lined up. Like while I lost my job, my wife had a wonderful job, and she's just like, hey, don't worry about it. And so I went through, I cranked out the rest of my degree. And at the same time, I was just inhaling all this stuff to figure out how to run a business. And so
Neat how the universe kind of lines up like that for you sometimes.
yeah, I agree.
So, That's how you know it's right. But Mike is right. That takes a tremendous amount of courage. So what have been your roadblocks along the way, and how have you maintained you have a very natural positivity and energy about you. How do you maintain that when the hard things come?
So one of the things that I love is reading, and one of the books that I read while I was in school was Good to Great. You guys might have heard it, Jim Collins.
Jim Collins, yeah.
And yeah, and he wrote that, and then he also, like, I had read in the back, like in my history, Great by Choice. And then there's another one that he wrote called B 2.0. So I had read all three of those books while I was in school. And one of the things that they taught was having a business vision and mission and core values. So one of the things that I started off with, this was before I even like started like gaining clients and like starting to like grow like crazy and getting busier and busier, was I went through and I put together these core values and this mission and this vision of what I wanted to do. And so yeah, like going through and having those pieces together, what it does is when you're experiencing those hard times, those core values and what you're working towards inspires yourself because it means so much to you yourself. And like these core values, while I'm a team of one, it often is something I go back to when I say like, okay, this just sucks what I'm going through. Because like running a business, it sucks sometimes. And it's just hard because you're like, I've got clients leaving. I've got these other huge roadblocks in the way that I have to go in and work around. And then it's just like, okay, where do I focus my energy and my time? Because I also need to go in and like invoice people or figure out strategies in order to make money. And so whenever I like hit any of these things, it's like I go right back to these core values, to this mission, to this vision, because it's something that like deep down it inspires me. And like the people that I work with, they know these things too about me, but they also see the value in them because it's like a value added thing.
Can you tell us the difference between a vision statement and a mission statement and core values?
Yeah, so top level is vision. So vision is best way to explain it. It's like the North Star that you'll never reach. It's something that you're aiming to obtain. It's almost kind of like this. So like my personal vision for SolidBase IT is to build strong foundations in IT for people and businesses. So I don't know if you've ever tried to build something robust, but it's hard. It's really hard to go in and do that. It's something where it's just like there are so many risks and so many weaknesses that come along the way as you're going in and you're building this, but it's something to work towards. And it's something that is like I'm putting strategy behind it. It's like I'm going in, I'm making things super boring for me and for my clients so that like nothing breaks ever. It's like I'm lowering the risk as much as possible. So like that's a vision, is that North Star that you're going for. And then a mission is like the mountains that you're climbing. So sometimes the missions, they'll change over time, but they'll be in line with the vision. So vision is always what you're like aiming for. The mission helps you choose what sort of goals you're working for. And these are going to be big goals. They're the way Jim Collins describes it is that they're BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. And you're working towards these things, like you're going in and you're like, how do I go in and transform somebody that has no IT experience into becoming a CTO or a CIO? How do I go in and build this process so I'm not only building up these employees that I'm having come on board with me, but they're adding value along the way because they're learning all the strategies in order to get there. So that's what that's what a mission is just like, you can go in, you can say it's a money mission, you can say it's like achieving a specific goal, like I'm going to own a building, or like I'm going to go in and have 1 million subscribers to my YouTube channel. It's like that's the sort of mission that you're working towards. And then the final one is core values. Core values, specifically, these are the attributes that help you along the mission. It's the things that help you get there. And there's a lot of ways that you could describe core values, but that's the way that I think of it. Is it's just like, okay, when I'm going through a tough time, or else when I'm going in and I'm making a decision for the business using my mission and my vision, it's like I'm going back to these core values, and do all these things align as I'm making these strategic business decisions. So you have these core values. And so, for instance, one of my core values is ever forward. And so it's actually a mix of a couple of different things that I thought of as I was like going in, I was like choosing this core value. And it was like, when I'm facing some tough times, I want to press forward through those hard times. It's like you keep on going type of a deal. And then the other thing is, like, in order to grow the business, I needed to continue moving forward, even in like tough times. And like when you're experiencing like really hard projects you're working on, or dealing with a really hard situation where you're like, well, where am I going to get this money in order to fund this project that I want to do? Or how do I pay for marketing? It's like, how do I go in and like make those decisions? You have this core value where you're like, well, I already know what my vision is. I know what my mission is. Well, I just got to keep on pushing forward, but I need to do it strategically and smartly at the same time, because I still want to, I don't want to like putter out halfway through. So that's an example.
So that's really thorough. Thank you. It sounds like you're describing a lot of difficulty along the way in starting your own business. What keeps you there instead of going and working in a big tower somewhere for
Like,
another group?
I've often asked myself the exact same question. And I'm sure many other entrepreneurs have. What keeps me going is like, I really do believe in building stuff. Like I remember like the first degree I ever went in and started applying to is, I love the arts. And so I was actually going to go to school to be a fine artist. And I love art still. I go in and I do leather work for fun. I like crafting things. I love painting. I love drawing. But the thing that I always loved about it was, I'm taking this raw material and I'm making something creative out of it. And so for me personally, like I always went in and I looked at this blank canvas with all of these possibilities, and I loved going in and like making something out of this blank canvas. And it's just like, sometimes you look at it and you're like, that's not quite right. I didn't like it that way. And then you're like, well, I'll iterate on it. I'll like adjust these things or these things and give it another try. But what it is it's the creation process. I love creating, and I love going in and building new things.
Good.
So now what keeps me going is because it's just kind of like, if I stop, then I'm creating something else for someone else. And that doesn't appeal to me for some reason.
I'm curious, when you work with other companies, are you helping them with that mission and vision, the foundational things and culture? It seems like something we've talked around, but not directly here on this podcast with you, is how savvy you are about establishing a culture. And although you are a group of one right now, you're poised for anybody to join you. And there is this culture, this beautiful culture to participate in. How do you do that? Or do you do that with the people you work with?
Well, actually, funny enough, Nikki, I hired somebody just last month.
Oh,
So I'm a culture of two. And what it actually was really interesting is it helped with the hiring decisions. Like I met them and I interviewed them and I said, like, this is what we're doing. And I was like, is this something you want to get on board with? And he's just like, yeah, I do. He's like, you're going to raise me up to, like, if I wanted to become a CTO or a CIO, I was like, yeah, I'm going to teach you everything I can in order to get you there. And so he's just like, yeah, he's ambitious. He gets it. He wants it. And he's a guy that has the capacity to do it. But I might have avoided your question. Did I answer that?
Well, when you're working with the companies you consult with, are you building that into what you help them with? Is that part of what you offer them?
So there's two different things I offer them. One is like going in and, like, I look at IT as a strategy specific for a business.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm going in and I'm performing something I call digital transformation, it's not that I'm ripping everything out of there. I'm understanding all of their processes and what makes that business specifically profitable. So I go in and I say, like, okay, so what are you doing right now in order to be profitable in this area? And they explain their process to me. I said, and then I go in and I take all of the different technical knowledge of what they're doing, and I say, like, we could apply this. We could go in and apply this. We could apply this. And then they're like, well, what happens if this? And then I go in, that's what we call risk. And so we go in and we account for that risk, and we say, like, how can we lower that risk significantly? And then that digital transformation, what that does is it's all focused already on all their processes, on their culture, on what they're doing inside of the business. And we're taking all of those things and we're making a new model for them in order to improve and make it even better. So that's often what I'm doing with a lot of these clients, because what I do with them on my managed service clients is I sit down with them and I go over and we have a quarterly review. And we talk about, this is everything that I've been doing, and here are the areas of improvement that we need to make based off of the continual issues that I'm running into while working with your clients or with your employees. And so what happens is their vision actually becomes my mission. So my mission specifically for them is to go in and say, like, how can I make you more profitable? How can I make you more efficient? How can I improve your lives from a technology standpoint? And like that happens with not only my managed service clients, but also my co-managed service clients, because often what it is I'm coming in there and they're either asking me to go in and perform some of this digital transformation, or they're asking me to take care of the stuff while they're working on the digital transformation. So it's like either or, it just kind of depends on, and that's what I call co-managed IT, is I'm kind of like, when that guy gets sick or he wants to go on vacation, I'm there to step in, but at the same time, I'm there to take care of the stuff that he either doesn't have the ability to do, or he or she, or just be supplemental help to their team specifically.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Kent, we only have a few minutes left here. Can you tell us a little bit about leadership from the perspective of staying on top of technology, relevant technology?
Yeah, so as far as leadership, staying on top of relevant technology, a lot of it comes to just knowledge and understanding. So for instance, let's talk about like ChatGPT. So a lot of people, this is a buzzword that you hear around the Thanksgiving table, at the dinner table, or else like at a party or something somewhere, where they're like, yeah, I fired my copyright guy because I'm using ChatGPT now. What a lot of people they do is they're like, yeah, this is it's a fix for everything, and what they don't realize is that it still requires a lot of work and understanding in order to utilize it. And like they can go through and if you aren't an experimenter, if you aren't somebody that wants to go in and try A/B testing and things like that, it becomes one of these things where you're like, oh, cool, it can write some stuff for me, but I don't really know what the output is giving me. And so like, I think you and I talked a little way back about how you went in and put in some code in order to like have it write some basic code for you in order to
Oregon
like,
Trail. Yep.
yeah. And you're like, oh yeah, this thing worked, but it was super buggy. And like I was able to like compile in the end, but it just didn't fit in the end, like until I went in and I like solved all these problems that it couldn't solve itself. And like that's something that like a lot of people need to understand is it's just like, yeah, you can strategically use chat GPT for these things, but if you have no understanding of how copyright works in the first place, you aren't going to know what you're looking for in the end result. It's kind of like if you don't know how to program in the first place and you're like, please write an Oregon Trail for me, and then you try to like run it, you're like, well, this isn't working because I got like all this code right here, but what do I do with the code now that I have the code? It still takes a lot of understanding. It does a lot of the legwork for you, but you have to have the understanding to know what to do, and that translates to any single technology that's out there that a business wants to implement into their business. So you have to have understanding about like, and that's what I call wisdom, is like understanding about what to do with something, right? And so just because somebody's like, I need a server, you're like, well, what do you need a server for? And they're like, well, I need a server in order to hook up my network. And I was like, well, in a way that's a server, but it's not really a server. And so like you go in and you like have to almost translate for people at times. It's like, well, this is actually what you need, and help me I'll get you to where you need to be, because it's like I've gone through and I've worked in this forever, and it's like getting that understanding and applying it.
How do you deal with correcting a customer when they say they need something, but you realize it's really the wrong thing, that there's really something different that they need?
Usually it's what they're asking in the first place is for your knowledge. And so that's why they're bringing up the conversation in the first place. And so it's, first of all, you don't ever want to bust somebody's ego. That's the way that I look at it. It's like you don't want to be the IT guy from SNL. I don't know if you remember that guy, where he's just like, move, when somebody would like be like asking him for a question. The idea would be that you go in and you're seeking for understanding of what they're trying to get to eventually. It's more of like they often have this question with an underlying goal, and it's discovering what that goal is first. And then it's working backwards from that goal to get them where they want to be. So and so often it's like somebody asks me for a server, and it's like, oh, what do you need a server for? And they're like, well, I'd like to be able to send email, and I just want to make sure that I can also share documents with people, and I want to be able to make sure that like I can like do video. And it's like, oh, well, there's a lot of great tools out there. Have you heard of Google Workspace before? I'm like, yeah, how do I get a server for that? And I was like, well, you don't need one. Or else like Microsoft 365, they're like, well, how do I get a server for that? It's like, you don't need one. They already have it all built out for you, and all we need to do is implement it and set it up. And I was like, it's going to save you hundreds of thousands of dollars not having to buy like a server that you put in a closet somewhere, where you're like instead paying like a low amount every single month. It's about understanding and getting them there, just so that you know what their goals are.
Okay, so yeah, getting close to the customers. Very good. Well, we're out of time, Kent. If you want to give us a brief plug for your company and the service you offer, now's your chance.
Yeah. So what I do is I do IT consulting, and specifically something called managed services. So I'm a managed service provider. I make IT really boring for my customers, which means that when you have exciting IT, nobody's having a good time. And so I'm making it super boring for you so that you don't ever have any excitement in your life. And I don't have any in mine. And so I do this for small and medium-sized businesses, and I am excited and passionate about technology, and I love helping businesses just improve their situations.
And how can people get in touch with you if they want your services?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, solidbaseit.com, and you can review it and see what sort of services that I offer. And then there's a contact page directly on there. And then other than that, you can send me an email at kent@solidbaseit.com.
Okay. Very good.
Thanks,
Well,
Kent.
been a pleasure to interview you, Kent. Thanks for your wisdom.
Yeah, it was nice talking with you, Mike and Nikki. Hope you guys have a good day.
Okay.
You too.
Okay. All right. I think that's a wrap, Nikki.
All right.